January 1st, 1863. With the stroke of a pen, President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation declared millions of enslaved people free. But for many in the Confederacy, that freedom remained just a rumor until the day Union soldiers arrived. The end of the Civil War in 1865 answered one question: who won the war? But began a much harder struggle. What would peace and freedom truly look like for 4 million people stepping out of bondage? The first moments of freedom were filled with what they called Jubilee. It was a feeling of overwhelming, unimaginable relief and joy. But it was immediately followed by immense practical challenges. Where would they live? How would they eat? Many simply walked off the plantations, testing their freedom by leaving the only home they had ever known. Others embarked on heartbreaking journeys, searching for wives, husbands, and children who had been sold away years before, placing ads in newspapers that read, "Information wanted of my family, torn from me by slavery." To address this crisis, Congress created the Freedmen's Bureau, the first major federal aid agency in American history. It faced a monumental task with limited resources. Its agents distributed emergency rations, established hospitals, and helped negotiate the first labor contracts between freed people and landowners. But its most profound legacy was education. For people systematically denied literacy under penalty of law, reading was liberation. The Bureau built over 1,000 schools and founded institutions like Howard University. Classrooms saw elderly men and women sitting beside children, all hungry to claim the power of knowledge. A political revolution was etched into the nation's founding document. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but contained a fateful loophole: except as a punishment for crime. The 14th Amendment established birthright citizenship and guaranteed equal protection of the laws, directly overturning the Dred Scott decision. The 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote. This constitutional trifecta created the legal foundation for Reconstruction, a period of unprecedented interracial democracy. For a brief, remarkable decade, a new world seemed within reach. Over 2,000 African Americans were elected to public office, from local sheriffs to U.S. senators like Hiram Revels of Mississippi. They helped draft progressive state constitutions, establishing the South's first public school systems open to all children. The dream of economic independence, of owning the land their families had worked for generations, was crystallized by the promise of 40 acres and a mule. But this promise was swiftly revoked by President Andrew Johnson, who returned confiscated lands to former Confederates, ensuring economic dependency would persist. This progress ignited a furious and violent backlash. Southern legislatures passed black codes, laws designed to recreate slavery in everything but name. They criminalized unemployment, forcing black people into labor contracts on white-owned plantations. Then came the terror. Paramilitary groups like the Ku Klux Klan and the White League used lynching, arson, and mass murder, such as the Colfax Massacre of 1873, where over 150 freedmen were killed, to overthrow biracial governments and restore white supremacy through systematic violence. Northern political will to protect these new freedoms faded. In the Compromise of 1877, Republicans agreed to withdraw the last federal troops from the South in exchange for the presidency. This abandonment allowed for the redemption of the South by white democratic rule. The Jim Crow era descended, codifying a rigid racial caste system. The 13th Amendment's loophole was exploited, leading to the mass incarceration of black men for minor offences, who were then leased out to plantations and mines as convict labourers in a system often worse than slavery. But the promise of freedom was a seed that could not be killed. It fueled the Great Migration as 6 million African Americans moved north and west in search of safety and opportunity. It inspired the creation of the NAACP and fueled the civil rights movement. A century after Reconstruction, a new generation would march, protest, and demand the full citizenship that had been promised and betrayed in the 1860s. The end of slavery was a beginning, not an end. It opened a door to a more just America, but the path was, and remains, long and difficult. The story of emancipation and Reconstruction is not a footnote in history. It is the central story of a nation's unfinished revolution, a profound struggle between a promised freedom and a brutal reality. A struggle that continues to echo in our politics, our justice system, and our national soul today.